Hi everyone, welcome back to another video of the Fat to Fit series. This is video number 8. Right, so first off, my apologies for the delay. I was supposed to upload this video last week, but it just happened to be Eid al-Fitr or Eid Mubarak last week, or I should say just last Sunday, which is less than 5 days ago, right? So I've been a little bit preoccupied with some cooking and festivities and all that, so this video was put on hold. But anyhow, I'm here with this video now, and really happy to do it right now. So with the previous video, I've already touched on the diet in general and what you should be aware of, especially with calories and how you count calories and that sort of thing, and then also explain it from the perspective of a keto diet. So that video in particular addressed and hopefully answered some of your questions specifically about diet. And then you also asked me about exercise and how you can plan a specific exercise program for your needs, right? So I get a lot of questions from guys actually about exercise and diet. So a lot of the guys, they keep asking me about a specific diet and exercise plan to target the midsection or the belly fat, which is a common problematic area for men in general, the belly fat, where the fat tends to get distributed. So I'll just start with this before I go on to my exercise presentation here. You can't really spot reduce fat. You can't spot train and reduce fat, although if you do work a certain area a little bit more than the rest, yes, you tend to sort of tone it up a little bit more. But in general, the body is designed to burn fat overall. You can't really tell your body, hey, I want to just burn fat from my midsection, from my belly. Or maybe perhaps for girls, you might have problematic areas in the lower half, like your hips, your buttocks, your thighs. Just I'm speaking from experience. So again, you can't really just tell your body, hey, I just want to burn fat from here, right? Because that's just not how the body works, and really it's not how the body should work, right? And to explain that, I'm gonna have to go into physiology and the whole kind of anatomy of the human body, but I'm not going to do that because that's going to be like an hour-long lecture and a video in and of itself. It should be, right? So we'll save that for a rainy day. So coming back to my presentation, I've prepared a presentation of what I would describe as a general guide in helping you understand what exercise does for you, and the sort of to describe to you the different movements in exercise and what they do and how they contribute to fat loss and weight loss, which I'm sure that many of you are here for, right? To understand about how you can consistently lose fat and build muscle at the same time, which is the most important thing. Okay, so let's get to this presentation, right? So the first thing that you should know and understand would be the big three movements, right, in any kind of exercise program. Okay, so the first one will be isometric, and this is when your muscles don't move. Okay, basically any kind of yoga pose, or if you take up a certain pose and you just hold it and you remain stationary, that's isometric. So if you're holding a plank pose, planks, they're isometric. If you're holding an eagle pose, which is a yoga pose, any kind of yoga pose, whether you're squatting and you're holding that pose, that would be isometric. Wall sits are also common in terms of being an isometric movement, or isometric pose, sorry. Which, by the way, at the end of this video, I've put together a little kind of montage of exercises for the lower body, specifically to do strength, for strength training for your lower half, and you will get to see what exactly a wall sit is. So if you want to skip this whole presentation, you can go right to the end of this video. Right, so the second one will be isotonic, and isokinetic. So isotonic are normally your body weight exercises. So like your push-ups, your pull-ups, anything that you just use your own body as resistance, right? So that's isotonic. Push-up, pull-ups, lunges. Normally you don't need equipment for this, right? And then isokinetic is kind of like the same, but you add resistance to it. So isotonic, you're using just your body as resistance, but with isokinetic, sometimes you further add to that load, you further add to that resistance. So the resistance can be in the form of weights, so like dumbbells, barbells, so you know, deadlifts using barbells or even dumbbells, resistance bands, which I use a lot, especially now that I'm at home. You know, I don't go to the gym, so that's, you know, that's something that I use a lot, and I've had my resistance bands for a long time now, and it's really great because it's so, you know, it's so light and portable. You can take it anywhere with you. You can take it, you know, while you're traveling, and it adds somewhat, you know, increases the load, yeah, resistance, which in the long run will increase your strength. Okay, and then the third type will be plyometric. Now these are exercises that involve a jumping or explosive movement, and this is something more advanced because it's essential for speed and performance. Okay, so normally people who are at an advanced stage will be doing a lot of plyo movements and plyo exercises. So if you have already been consistently training and you've built a lot of strength already, you know, I would definitely recommend adding in and incorporating plyometric movements and exercises in your routine. Common ones would be like jumping squats, sprints, plyo box jumps, where you jump from the ground with the 2 feet, and then you just, you know, jump up like a vertical jump. You might have seen some videos on YouTube. A lot of people who use a lot of legs, you know, need a lot of muscle and power in their legs, they'll do a lot of this plyometric movements, and in particular the plyo box jumps. All right, so again, this is more of the advanced level exercise movement. So there you go, these 3 types. Yeah, whatever exercise you're doing, whether it's yoga, whether it's cardio, whether it's strength training with a dumbbell or a barbell or resistance band, you can always break them down and categorize them in either of these 3 groups of movements. Okay, moving on. So from the 3 groups of exercises, you can also you can also choose and differentiate between the intensity of the exercises. So normally, typically, we have 2 types of intensity. One is the low intensity steady state, or otherwise known as LIST, short form. And the other one is high intensity interval training, or otherwise in short is HIIT. Right? So I'm sure you've heard of this. You know, people kind of use the word all the time. You've probably seen it on Instagram. You know, some of these influencers, these trainers on Instagram use these words to describe them. So that's basically what it is. It stands for, one, LIST is low intensity, and then HIIT is high intensity. So I think it's pretty obvious what it means. With low intensity, you are not going at your full capacity, right? And capacity here is referring to your basically how you measure is usually through your heart rate, right? So at a low intensity, your heart rate is nowhere near your maximum heart rate. So depending on your age, your maximum heart rate will be different, right? So for example, like me, I'm 33 right now. My maximum heart rate, which is 220, if I'm not mistaken, minus my age, is around about 180. I think, yeah, 220 minus 33. Yeah, I think it should be around about that, right? So 180, 170 plus, that's my maximum heart rate in a minute, right? So when I'm going at a low intensity, when I'm doing an exercise at a low intensity, it will be nowhere near that maximum heart rate. So I'd probably be going at maybe 130 beats per minute, maybe 120, you know, depending again on the exercise I'm doing. So what it means is that why your heart rate is not as high, or is not going to, you know, the maximum heart rate, or not close to the maximum heart rate, is because at this point you are in the fat burning range of your heart rate. What this means is basically you are using oxygen in order to supply your the energy to the cells, to the muscles, to, you know, every part of your body which is working. So in this instance, when you're using oxygen, it's also known as aerobic. So yeah, I mean, it makes a lot of sense, right? You know, the aerobics classes, the exercises that you do aerobics, right? So when you're doing aerobics, okay, it also means that you're doing something pretty low intensity, and you're using up oxygen, and most of the time, or actually typically, you would burn fat at this stage. Why? Because as opposed to glucose, fat breaks down slowly. So if you're going at low intensity and a steady state, meaning for an extended amount of time, the body needs a source of energy that can provide it with, you know, a sustained source of energy, right? So that it can go the distance. So for example, if you're running at a very low speed, you know, people who runners who run marathons, if you're running a marathon, which is 42 kilometers, right, or 26 miles, you can't sprint all the way. That's impossible, right? So you would have to keep at a really steady and consistent pace. Sometimes you pick up your pace a little bit, you go a little bit faster, sometimes you go slower, but most times you're pretty, you know, you're going pretty slowly, right? As I mean, compared to people who are doing sprints. So the reason for this is that obviously, you know, you can't. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint. And also, what this means is that it keeps you, you know, the energy that is used, which is fat in your body, keeps you sustained for the entire period of time, you know, for the entire 42 kilometers. So that's what low intensity steady state means. So it's normally a lot of it would be cardio that is low intensity. So running long distances, cycling long distances, swimming long distances. So those are list exercises. A lot of it will be cardio, okay, because you're not really exerting so much force. Okay, so with HIIT, it's kind of like the opposite. Now, if with low intensity you're burning fat, HIIT, which a lot of people confuse and get wrong, you're actually burning glucose, because with HIIT, okay, you are using high, rapid, fast, and explosive energy over a very short period of time, okay? With LIST, it's extended, right? So with HIIT, it's a very short period of time. Normally, it's within seconds. And your heart rate goes from like normal, okay, to maximum, or VO2 max. VO2 max is the maximum of which, you know, your lung capacity can go, of which your lung can go without oxygen, or is it hold oxygen? It's something like that. I might be wrong, but you can look it up later on, and I'll correct myself if I'm wrong. Okay, so basically it's that swift. It's very quick. Yeah, you go from no movement, stationary, you know, to like a very explosive movement, which makes your heart rate go up. And normally it goes really, really high, almost to your maximum. So when you are using that much of energy in a very short amount of time, you your cells in the body and your muscles, they don't use oxygen to use, you know, to produce energy. And at this stage, what we call it the anaerobic stage. So when your cells and your muscles are using oxygen, it's aerobic. And then when they're not, it's anaerobic. And once you get to this stage, past aerobic to anaerobic, it's no longer the fat burning stage. This is when then your body needs glucose to immediately fuel all your cells, your muscles that are explosively working now, rapidly, making all these rapid, bursts of movements. Normally, when you're doing a lot of HIIT and, for performance and speed training, a lot of it involves your the twitch. I think it's called the twitch fiber muscles, which if you look at people who do sprints, sprinters, especially the men, right? They are very muscular. Why are they muscular? Well, they have to, because it requires a lot of power to sprint and to move, within that short amount of time, to move that fast. So, like, for example, Usain Bolt, he's muscular, but someone who runs a marathon is going to be pretty, I wouldn't say just lean, but also really skinny, and wouldn't have as much muscle as a sprinter would have, because it doesn't make sense. If you are doing a lot of low intensity exercise and you are an athlete, just doing that as your job, you don't need to put on the muscle. But when it comes to high speed performance training, HIIT is the exercise that you need to do in order to grow all your fast twitch fibers or fast twitch muscles in your body, and automatically it grows the muscles in you. So that's why sprinters all are very muscular. Okay, so these are the two types of intensities that you would typically have in whatever kind of exercise movement you do, whether it's isometric, isokinetic, or isotonic, or plyometric. So normally with plyometric, I think you can figure out which of the two intensities it normally would fall under, right? So with plyometrics, normally it will be a HIIT kind of intensity, high intensity. Right, so how would you plan your routine? Whatever it is, whatever exercise you choose to do, okay, whether you want to do plyo box jumps, whether you want to do just weight training, whether you want to do body weight training, each of your exercise programs or routines should consist of both cardio and strength. Okay, so cardio is pretty straightforward what it means. It's short for cardiovascular. So when you do cardio, you are training your cardiovascular health or fitness. Okay, and it involves using cardio, which is your heart, right? So it involves training your heart muscle, because remember that the heart is a muscle and it needs to be trained in order to be working effectively, and be able to work effectively in the long run. So cardiovascular fitness and health is very important and should be in your exercise routine, whatever exercise you do. Whether you choose to cycle as cardio, whether you choose to box as cardio, whether you choose to run as cardio, you should have it in your exercise program, okay, or routine. And then the second half would be strength training, which involves, well, like a lot of resistance training, okay? And you progressively increase the load as you go. As you build more strength, you can increase the load, right? Whether that be in form of dumbbells, resistance bands, or even your body weight. So cardio and strength, which ones do you do more of? So from the two, you should do strength more than cardio, especially if your goal is to lose weight. And what this means is that when you do more strength over cardio, you're also building more muscle. And when you build more muscle, what happens next? You lose more weight, or you increase but basically you increase your metabolism. Therefore, you use up more calories at rest, and therefore it's easier for you to burn more fat. So from the two, cardio and strength is a priority. And then intensity of the exercise, HIIT or LISS, okay? If you're doing a lot of strength, then you're going to do a lot of HIIT, because a lot of strength training would get your your heart rate up a lot of it, because you're exerting so much force. even though it might seem that when you're doing weights and you're, you know, lifting barbells or dumbbells, it might seem like, oh, you're not really moving. I guess, you know, if you see someone swimming or cycling, that seems more, you know, that there's more energy used in that. But actually, if you don't believe me, check your pulse, check your heart rate when you're doing proper weighted exercises and you're increasing the load as you go. You will see that your heart rate will go really up, and a lot more than just, you know, doing low intensity cardio. So it makes a whole lot of sense. If you're doing strength more than cardio, then you're going to do more HIIT over LISS. So that's why strength over cardio, HIIT over LISS. All right? Okay, so how often should you exercise? Well, one thing about HIIT, now, even though I did say, you know, HIIT over LISS and strength over cardio, HIIT is pretty strenuous on the body. You know, it creates stress. Yeah, it's very stressful on the body because you're using so much power, you're using all your muscles, and you know, you'll be tired after that. So you shouldn't be doing it every day. And especially if you're doing strength training where you're working a lot of the big muscle groups in your body, like especially after leg day where you're doing, you know, a lot of your lower half body exercises, the next day should definitely be a rest day, okay, after a HIIT workout. So this means, you know, for strength training that typically uses a high, you know, is done at a high intensity, you should make sure that you fully recover and that your body is rested, right, from all the stress from having, you know, worked all these muscles. Sometimes if you feel like you have the energy, maybe on your rest day you can actually do some cardio, very light LISS cardio. All right, so you can either do this on your rest day, or you can just have one complete day of rest after your HIIT workout, and then wait until the next day, the alternate day, to do cardio. I mean, that works well as well. So there's 7 days in a week, and if you plan to do, say, at least 3 HIIT workouts a day, 3 HIIT workouts a week, then in between you have 4 days, right? So maybe you can have maybe 2 rest days and then 2 cardio days. So, you know, you can have 3 HIIT days and 2 cardio LISS days. That's perfectly fine. That's 5 workouts. No, you know, that's a great plan to stick to, and you know, it should be something that you want to work towards. Having said that, there's really, like, you know, with that kind of routine, you have 5 days of working out, right? So and then you have all the rest days between, or at least 2 rest days in between. But having said that, there's really no magic number. And then there are some people out there who work out every day, and I have a lot of respect for these people. I don't. And you know, I know, you know, exactly the kind of person I am. I don't think I can ever, I don't think I can ever really stick to that. I have days where I have a little bit more work to do, and therefore I can't just, you know, put in all the energy and time into making sure that I exercise every day, right? So you have to stick to a plan that can suit you. As long as it's sustainable, stick with that. Do not force yourself to take up, you know, something that you can't stick to. Like, you know, if, say, you decide to do yoga every day, you know, for 40 minutes, for example, and you want to do yoga at some yoga studio or with friends or whatever it is, right? But there's just no chance for you to do it every day. You know that it's going to be difficult because perhaps you have a family, you have children, or the commute is long, or, you know, there's so many things that might come up that, you know, are unplanned, and maybe your schedule is unpredictable. So just don't, okay? Stick to something that you know you can, you know you can do day in and day out. That it's better to do shorter sessions and more infrequent workouts, like say 3 times a week, rather than, you know, this week you do 1 workout, and then, or this week you do 2 workouts, and the next week you do 1, and then the 3rd week, 4th week, no workouts at all. You know, that's not going to help you in the long run. Remember, it's all about the long-term goals, right? So stick to something that you know you can stick to in the long run. Okay? Now, here's the kind of million-dollar question. Do you need to exercise to lose weight? Now, at the end of this presentation, you'll see, you know, the reason to this answer. No, you don't need to exercise to lose weight. Why? Well, if you remember from my previous video, I explained to you how thermodynamics works, right? Calories in, calories out. So basically, as long as you are at a calorie deficit, you will lose weight. Now, if that means the deficit is coming because you're not eating as much, or you're eating enough and then you're exercising, therefore burning calories, and then being at a caloric deficit, doesn't matter, because your body can't tell whether you're losing calories because you've exercised and you are using up the calories to exercise, or that you're just not eating as much as you used to. It doesn't matter. As long as there is a caloric deficit, which is thermodynamics, you will lose weight, right? But, now here's the big but, okay? Exercise is crucial in building strength and muscle, which you lose naturally with age. So there's that to consider, okay? As you age, that's why, people complain their metabolism is not like it used to be. They're gaining weight more, more easily, and it just doesn't seem like they can eat as much as they can 10 years ago, or when they were in their early 20s or in their teens, right? And this is perfectly natural, because as you age, you lose muscle. So what happens when you lose muscle? Your metabolism also drops, and therefore you don't burn as many calories at rest, and you would, if you eat a little bit more than usual, definitely you will gain weight. So that's why when we age, it's even more important to have a regular and consistent exercise routine, right? And to be, just in general, you have to be active, and consistently active throughout your life, and not just have, moments where you're active during these years. Probably you're running a lot, you're running marathons or 10Ks or whatever, and then you're not doing anything for like 5 years, and then you expect everything to be the same. No, because the longer you put it off, obviously the more your body is going to lose that muscle, and the more your metabolism is going to drop. And if you've been eating more than you should, then it's going to be so much harder to lose the weight. You can ask me, because that's what I did. I got to a point where I was too overweight. I was basically obese, and I waited to get to that point to then start changing my lifestyle. Eventually I've managed to, but it was difficult. I'm not gonna lie, it was difficult for me, and it still is, trying to maintain this healthy kind of switch, and always seeing the long-term goal, right? Even though it's kind of it's very near, it's very close now, but it's still very important for you to understand, to keep working towards it, right? So don't be like me. Don't wait until you've tipped the scale, so to speak, and it's too late for you to do something about it. Sometimes, most times, no one is ever too late. But the thing is, the longer you delay it, it's just going to be more difficult. That's all it is. So another thing about exercise is, as you build muscle, you're also toning up and sort of sculpting your body. You're defining the muscles, right? So what this means is that when you're losing weight, you're also preventing from any saggy skin forming, because what used to be fat underneath that skin is now replaced with muscle. So it fills up that void, right, that the fat has left behind. And it just, your skin will be tight, and you get toned arms and abs and legs and that sort of thing. So, all the more for exercise. So remember that consistency is key, okay? Do not lose sight of your goals, as I mentioned. Do this by setting short-term goals like weekly exercise goals and fat loss, etc., that then build towards accomplishing your bigger long-term goals, which should include being healthier and fitter and not just weight loss. So whether you're working towards a 10 kilo weight loss, 20 kilo, 50 kilo, at the end of the day, what you should the main takeaway that you should take from this is that it's a lifestyle change. It's something that you want to permanently have in your life, and not just do it because you want to just lose weight for this particular moment in your life. Because trust me, if that's your only goal, you will most likely put the weight back on. Trust me, because if you've ever seen The Biggest Loser, look at everyone who's been on that show. You know, yes, they lost so much weight within a very short amount of time, but look at the amount of the weight that they gained back after the show was a lot more than the weight they lost. Why? Because obviously the whole show is just about losing weight, and in that particular moment, and most of them, if you've heard the stories, had used pretty dangerous methods, and not just the stuff that you saw on TV, the stuff behind the cameras, which the TV producers, the show producers didn't want to show you. Well, tells another story altogether. So make sure that when you get on this journey, that your main goal is to also have a permanent, healthy, lifestyle change. So once you adapt your lifestyle to these changes, weight loss becomes a byproduct. And that's me in the later stages of my weight loss journey. It will happen, okay? I repeat, it will happen organically so long as you remain consistent. Consistency is key. So, all in all, remember I said that you don't need to exercise to lose weight? Well, that's because it's 80% diet and nutrition and 20% exercise. Okay, so whenever in doubt, reassess your diet. Okay, whether you're going through a plateau, you feel like you're not losing, you will lose a lot of weight initially, and then you will sort of hit a wall at some point, which is normal, and then you think, oh God, am I not exercising enough? Normally that's not the answer. Normally it's back to the drawing board with what you're putting in your mouth. Always check your diet, check on your diet consistently. The amount of fat and calories that you burn throughout your weight loss journey will definitely change as your metabolism increases, and it adjusts to this new kind of state of your body, of energy that it's using and so on. So the best way to go about it is always to check on your diet. And why is this relevant? Why you have to stick to the 80% diet, 20% exercise ratio? Well, you cannot and never will out-train a bad diet. You won't. Ask any elite athlete out there who's been training their whole lives. Look at their diets. They normally have the best diets, and they will definitely sacrifice and give up a lot of really nice foods that we all get to enjoy more often than not, because they want to dedicate put all the effort and energy into their training, because that's what they do as a living, right? So there you go. Pretty much everything compacted into one presentation. As I mentioned earlier, at the end of this video, I've put together an exercise routine specifically for your lower half, your lower body, and this one is a strength training session, and I'll have you can see the description after this explaining each exercise. All right, have fun with that, and see you again in the next video. Bye, and thanks for watching.